Hello, this is Mark at Titus Performance. Before I get back to work, there's three things I wanted to share with you. First, show you a couple of the mini engines that we're working on here in the shop at Titus Performance. Secondly, some differences between Windsors and Clevelands and some information that you may or may not know about the two. And third, something that's pretty neat, pretty cool that ties them all together that we get to work on here in the shop. It's also pretty rare. So here we go. As you know, we manufacture the Titus Cleveland Block, but you may or may not know that we build and machine many types of engines. This is just a few of blocks that are getting ready to get machined. We've got a little small block Chevy over there holding up a Cleveland manifold, a V10 modular, a V8 modular. We've got a big block 460 back there in the background, and even a little 2.2 circle track Chevrolet. So we work on quite a few different things. We get the chance to experience quite a bit. Leading back into our second item, which is some random information about Clevelands and Windsors that you may or may not know. Let's get started on that. The obvious things that you probably know about a Cleveland and a Windsor being their differences is the Cleveland has its timing cover built onto the front of the engine, where a Windsor does not have the timing cover built on the engine. Just a few things that separate the difference of the two. One being the oil pan rail of a Cleveland. A oil pan rail on a Cleveland, the space between the two is a little bit wider on a Cleveland than it is on a Windsor, so you can put a little bit more crankshaft in it without notching the cylinders. And back here on the Windsor, you can see, especially back here in the starter area, it's narrower, and you can see we actually had to notch this block in order to clear the crankshaft that was in it in order to clear the connecting rods. The other thing that is different that I don't think quite as many people know is the cam to crank center line. The distance between the center of the crank and the center of the cam on a Cleveland is 5.044 inches. On a Windsor, it is 4.803. So that's just about a quarter of an inch. So that's one of the reasons that we chose, when we built an aftermarket block, to do a Cleveland, knowing that the cam to crank center line was a little bit higher on the Cleveland and the pan rail was wider, we could put bigger strokes in it. So that's why we also designed our block to go tall deck, so that we could take advantage of that. This block is a 427. It is a 9.2 deck standard Cleveland height. This Windsor is standard Windsor height at 9.5. But we also build the 9.7s for the Tituses. One question that we get asked quite frequently is guys who have race cars that are already configured for Windsor type engines, and they want to take advantage of the bigger cubic inch for our Titus block, is how does it fit in the race car, and what's the difference, and what do I have to do to make it fit? Well, the bell housing on both engines are the same. Small block Ford bell housing. The motor mounts on the side of the block, which in a race car you may or may not use, they are in the same location and in the same distance front to rear of the block. But the obvious difference being that the timing cover is separate on a Windsor and separate on a Cleveland is the engine is actually, when assembled, the same length. And what I'll show you, let me break out my tape measure. You take a look at the Cleveland block. Cleveland block is about 22 3/4 inches long. A Windsor block is just about 20 3/4 inches long. The timing cover for a Windsor is 2 inches thick. So if you add the two together, you end up with about 22 3/4 as well. So the block front to rear is the same length. So your motor plate dimensions, if that's where you're mounting the engine, the motor plate dimensions will work. The other piece of information about mounting your engine with a motor plate in the front of your race car is if you look at the front of a Cleveland block, you see the two water pump holes on the passenger side and these two water pump holes on the driver's side are actually in the same location as the Windsor water pump holes, passenger and then driver. And they're also, those holes, the distance from these holes to the crankshaft center line is the same. So if you can actually use those 4 holes as a template to re-drill your motor plate to make your Cleveland fit in a car that already has a motor plate configured for a Windsor. Now we get to the third part, which is the cool and rare part. This is a block that kind of ties the Cleveland and engine platform together. This is a block that was sitting new in the crate since 1988 that a customer shipped to us to build. And this engine is going to go in a gasser that is now being converted to a streetcar so he can drive it on the street. But many of the things, you can see this block does not have a timing cover cast into it, which makes this a Windsor type design block. But if you turn it over and look at the bottom of it is actually a Cleveland handrail. And it has a unique timing cover that has a Windsor shape to it, but the bottom of it, as you can see, is Cleveland. So it takes a unique timing cover. It's a unique block. It does take a Cleveland camshaft. The other thing that makes this a Windsor is the top of the engine. The china walls of the block are Windsor shaped. And the difference between a Windsor and a Cleveland, as we can see by just setting this tunnel ram on this, because this actually is going to be a tunnel ram engine. Now this is a 9.2 deck Fontana block, and that is a YN old school tunnel ram built for a Cleveland. So you can see how the china walls are shaped differently from the Cleveland, and then the Windsor is actually non-symmetrical in the back, where a Cleveland, the china wall is symmetrical front to rear. So we have to modify the bottom spacer plate for this when we go to put heads on it and make the manifold fit. So there's quite a few things that we have to do to adjust to make this engine part Cleveland, part Windsor. But it's a pretty neat project that we get to work on. It's something that's rare. I haven't worked on one of these blocks in many years, but we get the opportunity to do this one. And we'll keep following this through the build until all the way till we get to the dyno. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Hope you find some of this information that between Windsors and Clevelands, I hope you find it either interesting or useful. If you have any questions about the differences of Clevelands or Windsors or how they fit and interact together with the parts and pieces, a lot of people build Clevors, a lot of people are Cleveland purists. But if you have questions, let us know. Post them up. I'll try to do my best to answer it. But in the meantime, I got to get back to work and get these engines built.